Welcome back to From the Shed End, episode 175 of the podcast with myself, Theo, and the other Theo. How you doing, first of all?
I'm good. Yeah, not bad. It's been a busy week, but I feel like it's also been a while since we recorded. I think our last one was maybe beginning of October time during
Yeah,
the international break. So yeah, looking forward to getting back into all things Chelsea. Lot of like ups and downs I feel to talk about, especially after Wednesday's disappointing result in Baku,
mm,
city that we've often been very successful in. But yeah, other than that, I've been good. Weather in London is very, very mild this week, which is quite surprising for beginning of November time.
yeah,
But knowing the British weather is just going to switch from one day to the next.
yeah.
But how's your week been and how have you been?
Good, very busy as always. Yeah, it just feel like it's been a while since we last recorded the pod. I think obviously you've been away. I think since then as well. You went to Cape Town. I've been ill, as I normally am at this point in the year. So no, it's been good. It's been good. Been catching up on a lot of football, a lot of other things as well. But no, it's good to be back. So obviously the podcast will be back up and running. I don't think you've got any marathons coming up anytime soon or anything. So we should be all right to continue as we are. But make sure if you're new here, as always, make sure you subscribe, you hit the like button, all of that good stuff. Linktree link is in the description. We're going to talk all things Chelsea in the next hour or so. So make sure you get involved in the chat if you're here as part of the live stream. Um, let's start with, I mean, obviously we could go all the way back to October and talk about all of that if we really wanted to. But let's talk about Qarabag Champions League 2-2. Um, a lot of questions I think have been asked since the result about Maresca and the rotation. Um, what's your thoughts first of all? I mean, the performance wasn't the best, but let's go back to the lineup. What was your thoughts on the lineup?
I feel like we both predicted a much more rotated lineup than the one that Maresca played.
Yeah,
I mean, it was still a very strong 11. I think Cucurella was in there.
yeah,
You had the likes of, Lavia and Santos for me is a perfectly good midfield partnership to be able to deal with Qarabag. And then we had the likes of Esteval, Gittins, Joao Pedro starting. Sanchez, our first choice keeper,
yeah,
was starting as well. And we both had Jurgensen in our preferred 11. So I think in terms of lineup, I think we rotated, but I don't think we should be kind of pointing the fingers towards rotation for the cause of the points being dropped. I personally think it was a lot of complacency from maybe Maresca, from the Chelsea players, and from a lot of Chelsea fans as well. I know a lot of us had like a comfortable 3-4 nil as their prediction, but I
yeah,
always looked at this fixture and kind of saw it as a potential banana slip moment for us, or banana skin moment for us. I mean, let's go back into the details. I mean, Tuesday night the team left London. They landed in Baku at 1 a.m. Azerbaijani time. They probably wouldn't have had time to train. And then the next day, they played a game in Baku, and then which was a 5:45 p.m. kickoff London time, and then they flew back, landing at 6 a.m. UK time. So I know a lot
mm,
of players do this to kind of not adjust to that time difference, but stay on UK time. But that being said, when you've got like 6 hours door to door, and which is 12 hours in total of traveling, it's going to take a toll on you. I don't think it's helped that we have a game on Saturday and not Sunday. I think the Premier League could have been quite kind to us and given us a Sunday fixture rather than a Saturday one.
mm,
But yeah, definitely, I think fatigue may have played a part as well. Complacency, because let's not forget this Qarabag team. They dispatched Benfica on match week one. They
yeah,
looked good as well. I think they beat was it I can't, they beat another team I think in the Champions League. But they've definitely overperformed, and it's definitely not the same um, Qarabag that we faced back in 2017 when we had the likes of Willian, Eden Hazard, Pedro,
yeah,
Cesc Fabregas, and we beat them both in both fixtures of the Champions League, home and away.
yeah,
Um, it's 4-0 in Baku, 6-0 at Stamford Bridge. So that also makes me think like we've done it before in the past. Why can't we do it now with this squad we've assembled of big talents? We dominated possession, 61% possession to Qarabag's 39% possession. We got the early goal in Esteval, and I think he was the bright spark of the day. He was our best player, man of the match performance from him.
yeah,
Doesn't really help. After 4 minutes, we've got our paper mache midfielder, Romeo Lavia, going down and with the same recurring injuries. But what
mm,
does worry me is how uncomfortable our defence looked. We got a
yeah,
solid partnership, Tosin and Hato, but the two of them, at times looked absolutely atrocious and very, very uncomfortable. They struggled when they had the ball at their feet. Qarabag really pressed them, and I think probably at halftime their manager saw them as a weakness. So yeah, I think getting Badiashile, getting Levi Colwell back as soon as possible is going to be a big boost to us. And I think maybe Maresca, that game's maybe looking at Fofana as Chalobah as a preferred two centre backs, who I think will start against Wolves at the weekend. And then we have to rely on a triple substitution at halftime to almost change the tide of the game with, I think it was Liam Delap, Enzo Fernandez, and Alejandro Garnacho all coming on at the same time. And that kind of maybe put the momentum a bit back in our favour. But then right at the end of the game, they could have easily scored the winner. So it could have really been like, I almost feel like it's 1 point salvaged rather than 2 points dropped at times.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, a lot of those factors in terms of travel, in terms of the fatigue and all the rest. I get it 100%, but I think when you've got a team where you've spent so much money on, and I hate to always bring it back to, you spent this much amount of money, but you've got a squad that should be capable regardless, and must be. Obviously, it's tiring traveling and all the rest of it, but this is a squad that should not be struggling against Qarabag. It shouldn't. If that's just, to me, that's just the black and white of it, is that we've got a squad that is decent enough to take on this team with no issues whatsoever. And I always, I can't for the life of me think, why would you start Joao Heto, who I think is a very good defender, but you've got centre backs on the bench? I feel like this is more down to, we both had rotation in the squad. I think we both agreed that. I think the rotation for me isn't the problem. It's the fact that we're playing players essentially out of position when we rotate. Joao Heto is playing centre back. We know he's naturally a left back. Josh Ashiempong could have played in that game for me. I think, he's obviously proved that he can play as a right centre back. He can play as a right back. Tariq George up front doesn't make any sense to me. Just those little things. It's almost like we put ourselves under the pressure that we don't need to put ourselves under when we've got players on the bench to do that. It shouldn't take the 3 subs you mentioned to come off the bench to salvage something from the game. We should be comfortable enough where we actually don't need to bring those on. And we do bring on a Buonanotte, or we do bring on Mark Gu, Max Merrick. Maybe he gets a little right. These are the sort of games where I would think we should get them. And I get it's not the Qarabag of, smashing them 6-0, 4-0. I think they beat Copenhagen, was the other team that I think they beat as well in the Champions League. But it shouldn't be that difficult. And I just think sometimes, and I've said it before about Maresca, does he either underestimate the opponent he's coming up against, or does he just panic a little bit and just try and make sure that he puts some of the players that haven't been playing in the Premier League into the team? So it could be a mixture of the two. But I just think now it's worrying because we're 12th in the Champions League. I said before in the match preview that we do need to be in that top 8 very, very easily, in the next couple of games. Got Barcelona next, I think. Is it Paphos after that, maybe? And then we've still got to play Atalanta and Napoli. Big games. And Paphos won as well midweek. So it's just worrying that we're still continuing with Tariq George as the 10. It's just, for me, it's worrying. The fact that Esteval, who I don't think shouldn't be our star player, but is our star player. And of course, as you mentioned, Romeo Lavia, paper mache. I mean, I do feel sorry for Rome, because I do a little bit. I do feel sorry for Romeo Lavia a little bit, because I think if we're frustrated as fans that he's not being able to keep himself fit, he must be magnifying that by 10, because it can't be easy as a player. You come back, you want to play football, but you just can't keep yourself fit. Or do you think that the club maybe have to do a bit more in terms of not rushing him back?
Yeah, I mean, I do agree. I do feel sorry for him. I mean, the frustration from Chelsea fans, it boils down to the fact that he is a really good player and he's just so important to us. And the times we have seen him play, he's almost just like gone into his Chelsea team and fitted in right away. And like you said, he must be even more frustrated than the Chelsea fans. He's a footballer. He wants to be getting minutes. He wants to be competing alongside of Enzo Fernandez, Caicedo, Andre Santos, and these other midfielders. But I mean, I've got the injury record here. So we signed him, was it summer 2023? 17th of September to the 12th of November 2023. he was kept out injured with an ankle injury. And I think he came back for that one game against Crystal Palace, got injured again in that game on the 28th of December with a hamstring injury, which kept him out until the end of the season, to the 30th of June 2024, which is 186 days he was out injured. And then he had another kind of like multiple hamstring and thigh issues, which kept him injured throughout last season, 2024, 2025. And then he had a separate injury from 9th of December to 7th of January 2025, kept him out for 30 days. So I think it's just the manner that he's getting injured that is worrying me, because it's training injuries when he's not really kind of coming into contact with players. It's not like he's being tackled from behind like we saw with Luis Diaz and Hakimi in the Champions League. It's just muscle injuries or like we saw against Qarabag 4 minutes into the game, when arguably you're still warming up your body, you're still adjusting to the game, and he just goes down. And straight away, I think the medical staff, Maresca and himself, all knew that this is the same injury. He's been recurring muscle injury. So for me, it's worrying. And like I think we said when he last went injured, it's a player that unfortunately we just can't rely on anymore. We mentioned it about Reece James a while ago. Thank God with Reece James now we managed to, I don't know whether it's Maresca has done a really good job at managing his minutes to start off with. And now all of a sudden Maresca is saying he can play 3 games a week. So maybe, we need to go for that period where you just ease him into it really slowly. And maybe we got a bit too excited. We played him against Wolves, was it last week in the Cup? I think he might have come on against Spurs, and now he was due to start in Azerbaijan. But at the same time, when you spend almost 60 million on a player, you can't just be managing their minutes. You need to expect results from them straight away. So that's, again, when I kind of point the finger to our recruitment team, and we're signing players where the injury record's there. They know about these players. They should do their homework before signing them. Yeah. Same can be said about Badiashile. Same could be said potentially about, Reece James, I guess, is a Royal Academy player, but these are guys that, have had same recurring injuries week in, week out. And it's frustrating for him, but it's obviously also frustrating for us.
I agree with that. I think I'm at the point with Lavia, though. I think, looking at obviously when Dario Sugo comes back into the team after his injury, but and again, I'm looking at now Andre Santos, another one that I'm looking at maybe considering, who's now ahead of that pecking order when I'm talking about those midfielders. For me, obviously Caicedo, Enzo have those 2 midfield positions nailed down, but I'm thinking now Andre Santos has to be ahead of Lavia in that pecking order. We've given Lavia opportunity after opportunity, and the record that you've just, if I was working anywhere else with that sort of level of sickness or whatever, I think you get your P45 by now. And I think obviously football terms is very different, but it just goes to show that we can't rely on him. And if we want to try and we keep talking about, as Chelsea fans, we keep talking about, trying to push for a league or a cup or, get as far in the Champions League, you need players fit. You need your top players. If they're top players, you need them fit in every game, top game. They have to be available. And if they're not available, they're surplus to you in the end. Because what are we going to do? Run out when we play Cardiff? We're going to say, we'll give him a game, or against Qarabag, or we can play him in a Carabao Cup. He should be starting against Premier League games, top games where we need him. He should be the player that when we need to rest Caicedo or Enzo Fernandez, it's Romeo Lavia that we should be relying on, and we can't. And it's, as you said, 60 million. It's now looking a bit suspicious. Why the signing just doesn't make any sense, because we did, I think it was the same season we signed Caicedo. I think we poached both him and Lavia from Liverpool. So maybe we didn't need to sign him, because actually, has he been cost effective since we signed him? Has he actually given us enough to say, yes, there's signs, but it's not consistent enough. So I don't know about. I think I'm at the point with Lavia that we've been sold a dream that's turned into a nightmare, and we're here now. This is where we are.
Yeah. If you remember back in the 2024 season, we did kind of all the Bowley signings, and we had them ranked from, I think, top class signing to flops. And I think we both had Lavia in a flop purely because we hadn't seen him all season.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, based on the minutes he's gotten and what he's been able to provide for us when he has played, I would still potentially have him as a flop, given that he just hasn't been available for the majority of the time. And like I said, it's the recurring nature of these injuries. It's the fact that hamstring problems are reoccurring, and then the new muscle strains are appearing. For me, suggests 2 things. It suggests that the initial rehab that he was given by the medical team was not sufficient, and he was maybe meant to kind of progress or recover for longer than he was, or there's an underlying conditioning issue and that the training load is too high for him, and he's not able to kind of uh, compete at this level without getting injured, and that's purely based on how his body is. You remember it from Michael Essien's time, who
Yeah,
would
yeah.
just
So cool.
recur, get injured. I think Maresca even said it in his press conference, that pre Wolves press conference, that we don't have an update at the moment. We need to wait some hours for all of the checks that he needs. At the moment, he is injured. He is in pain. We need to do all the checks. The fact that this is almost 48 hours after the match and Lavia is still in pain
Yeah, well,
suggests for me that it's another long-term one.
they're saying months. They're saying this is quad and he's out for
Yeah.
months. So and I mean, it could be a factor of number of factors. It could be the fact that he's being rushed back, the fact that, it could be a hereditary thing in terms of his family and all the rest of it. It could just be that he doesn't have a good lifestyle outside of football, and he's not keeping himself, healthy in terms of, resting, recovering, not having the sort of young London lifestyle. I don't know. So it could be a number of all those things factored together, which is why he's not. I don't think he's. I don't think he's. Has he played 90 minutes for us? I don't think he has. I don't think he's played the 90 minutes for us. So, and this is, say, 800 days since he signed for us. Let's just say it's 800 days. He hasn't played 90 minutes of football. I'll give up with him. I think it's time to start thinking about Osugo, who I think is a really good player, and I think Santos. Maybe we can get the best out of Lavia, but I just this season I don't see it. I don't see it at all.
Yeah. Reggie Walsh as well, perhaps one that could get minutes when needed as well.
Reggie Walsh, yeah, I think he's playing in Haiti with the under-17s at the moment. So, but yeah, I think he's another one. We've got to consider options now. 100%, but it's just not looking good. Just in terms of Enzo Maresca, because I think I read that we've rotated our squad. We've had 85 different lineup changes this season. That's a lot of lineup changes. That's a lot. What's your thoughts on that? Because I get like we said, we have to rotate the squad. We've got a big squad, but there doesn't seem to be any. When we rotate, we lose. Well, have we ever had consistency? I suppose is the first question. And second of all, why isn't Maresca just rotating to the point where we have the level of consistency we still need to win a game and get 3 points?
I think we should. I think that's where I'm a bit worried, is when we're playing the likes of Qarabag, we're playing the likes of Wolves with a kind of fully rotated or half rotated squad. We should still have enough depth and quality to get past these oppositions quite comfortably.
Yeah.
But what does worry me is I still think Maresca doesn't know what his best 11 is. And I know there's been injuries to the likes of Cole Palmer, Liam Delap, Osugo. But even when his players come back, I still worry that he's got doubts on what his best 11 is. There's moments we've seen Garnacho play in the Premier League like he did against Spurs, like he did against Sunderland in the last two league fixtures. But I still think maybe Esteval is probably a better player, but he has maybe not really started as many Premier League games as he should. I also think maybe Maresca's getting him to adjust to the physicality of the league, and that's why he's gotten a lot of his minutes in the Champions League, where he's looked a lot more comfortable as well. But yeah, I do feel like if I could name you the best Chelsea 11 now, it probably will change from 1 week to the next, because I would have had Chalobah in it a few weeks ago. I would have had maybe Tosin, but maybe that's changed now. I'd probably favour Champong. Liam Delap, I think, is at number 9. Mark Guiza, number 9. They should be starting, not Joao Pedro, who started as a false 9 again. I think in Cole Palmer's absence, we should be having Joao Pedro behind the striker in Liam Delap or in Mark Gui. And then against Qarabag, why you, like you mentioned at the start, why are you playing a left back in a centre back role, and why are you playing a winger as a 9 when you've got tons of centre backs on the bench? You've got 2 strikers on the bench. It's almost like I want to make it make sense, but I can't, in a way. Some of the decisions he's made. What I was pleased with against Qarabag, he didn't wait until the 60th or 70th minute. He made substitutions at halftime. So I want to see that approach a lot more if things don't go to plan. Don't wait, make a change. But yeah, the fact is as well, we've struggled to even name a preferred 11 when we make our predictions. Is quite telling of how Maresca is unpredictable with his lineup decisions.
And I was reading earlier on this morning that apparently the hierarchy above Maresca are happy with the rotation. They're almost pushing him. I don't know, the word pushing is probably not the right word, but they're convincing him, encouraging him to rotate as much as possible. I just don't think you get any sort of understanding of anything your squad can do when you do that. Because again, I hate to use them as the example, but you look at Arsenal's backline, you know,
Yeah.
Saliba, Gabriel, they're nailed down every. It's very rare that both of those players are not in that back line. You look at Timber, another one, always in the team. So
Calafiori as well.
Calafiori as well is always in the team. And if they do swap it out, they bring someone in. They don't change the whole back line, is what I'm saying. They don't just take out the whole back line, bring in a new one, and or swap and change it, leave one in but take three out, or whatever formation you're playing. And I think that's the problem. The problem is if we stuck with, and they're going to make mistakes. So you know, if you stuck with Tosson and Wesley Fofana, or you stuck with Wesley Fofana and Chalobah, and you just stuck with them. So yeah, you might lose a game 1-0, or you might lose the game 2-1, but then the next game you stick with that, or the next 3 games you stick with them. They're gonna get a bit of consistency, and they're gonna actually start understanding each other, understanding where they both need to be on the pitch, who's defending who goes a bit forward. You're doing that on the training ground at Cobham every single day anyway. But you've got to stick with you've got to stick with a back line. Reece James, Cucurella should be bankers to start most games for us. The 2 centre backs have to be solid. First, they have to be solid defenders, but second of all, they have to build up a relationship on the pitch, because we won't win anything. We won't win a Champions League. We won't win a Premier League. We're not going to win anything if we keep swapping and changing. And then 1 week we've got Joel Heto, then it's Chalobah, Fofana, then Achiempong suddenly comes back into the team, and then you might put Achiempong at right back and put Reece James as a right centre back 2 games later. It's just mental. It just doesn't give you anything defensively. And going forward is exactly the same. You know, going forward, we're swapping. Gittins played well against Wolves in the Carabao Cup, and then didn't start the next game. Liverpool would never. I mean, the Liverpool of new is a bit different, but under Klopp, I could probably, at the time, I could have easily named their best 11 and most likely their starting 11. Real Madrid, the same the other night. I named their squad. I could tell you that Valverde was going to start right back and all the rest of it. So I feel like Maresca has a lot to learn. And I feel if it is the hierarchy that is saying to him, you know, make sure you rotate, make sure you're playing all our players that we brought in to make sure that they're all kept happy, then for me, Maresca has to then say, actually, no, you've brought some of these guys in that I didn't ask for. It's up to you to make sure they're happy, because I've got my team that I want to try and get the results with. To me, that's the problem. I think there's too many people upstairs dictating what the manager's doing downstairs.
Yeah, it's probably like trying to please a big group of players as well, trying to give them minutes when it's needed, when realistically you should just stick to what you think is your best 11. Another one, Malo Gusto occasionally playing in midfield as well when you've got other midfielders on the bench, and the ones you just named, Lavia, and when he was fit, and Andre Santos. But then an interesting statistic I saw before the Qarabag game was that Chelsea named the second youngest ever starting 11 by average age for an English club in an away UEFA Champions League match. 23 years and 97 days was the average squad age that started in Baku. And I think as well, when you travel to these Champions League away games, you do need a bit of experience. You do need a bit of leadership as well. When you go 1-0 up, like I said about when we went 1-0 up against Sunderland, you need someone who's a bit level-headed, a Thiago Silva, John Terry, a Michael Ballack, a Lampard, someone who's going to just be able to restructure the team, bark orders at their players. But again, I feel like at times when we concede or we go 1-0 up, we almost look like headless chickens and we don't really know what to do. And more often than not, we look like we're going to concede again than actually defend the lead or look like the team was going to score again ourselves. But yeah, I thought that was an interesting statistic that before the match, and I think it was quite apparent that it was a really young squad in Qarabag as well. But yeah, I feel like too much rotation or not knowing our best 11 might see Maresca struggle over these especially these Christmas months where we do need to rotate, but you also need to make sure your best players are also playing.
Yeah, I agree. For me, I think the big worry is that there shouldn't be a massive dip in quality when we do rotate. And for some reason, and maybe goes back to my point that these players just don't play enough. You can train all you want, but until you're on that match day and you're in the match day environment, maybe they're not comfortable enough playing with each other, because the way we fell apart in the Qarabag game defensively tells me that they can do all the training they want, but on the match day, it just doesn't work. Let's get into some of the comments in the comment section on the YouTube live as well. Got Daniel Knight in the comments saying, I don't rate this defense. Tossen is not good enough. Badia Shill is not good enough. Always injured, and I like Fofana, but he's injury prone. And Chalobah is not good enough. I would keep him as a squad player. Interesting thoughts there. Some of it I agree with. I think Chalobah. I think you could. Obviously, the injury wise different. I think all of them are good defenders apart from Badia Shill. I think Fofana's good. Injury wise, I don't think he keeps himself fully fit. But another comment from Daniel here saying Esteval needs to start against Wolves. They are bottom of the league, and he makes stuff happen, and he makes the teams better. It's a great opportunity. He scored. He scored. He gets second started in the Premier League. Let's just talk about Esteval very quickly, because you mentioned he was obviously our key player in the last game. I said a while ago. Well, first of all, let me ask you, where do you think his best position is? It out on the right, or is it in the 10?
I feel like we've seen him more out on the right at Chelsea so far. He has looked good there, but I think we did sign him for his versatility, because he can play almost anywhere.
Yeah, because
amongst the more defensive players.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's 18 years old and has already got 7 goals in all competitions this season. As for club and country, I think he was one of the youngest ever South American player to score in back-to-back Champions League matches as well. It was the man of the match in Baku as well. I think he's a really exciting talent. I said it on a couple podcasts recently. I think we've often signed these Brazilian wonder kids, the likes of Piazon, Wallace, Nathan, that have just never really lived up to the hype of the expectation. Whereas now we finally got one who's not just playing, not just in the squad, but actually performing to the level that he should. And I've said it and I'll say it again, but I do really hope he just focuses on his football. We often see with a lot of these Brazilian players that they kind of have maybe go down that kind of Neymar route of being kind of badly influenced by people around them. And they focus a lot more on things, outside of football than what, the 90 minutes on the pitch. But from what I've read about Esteval, he just really enjoys his football. He seems to be playing football with a smile on his face as well. He doesn't drink. He's really excited to discover London in terms with his family alongside him.
Yeah.
So I think if he just focuses on that, has the right people around him, the right entourage, then I think he'll be one of the best in the world. I genuinely feel like he will. And hopefully we can also kind of keep up with his level to be able to retain the likes of a talent like Esteval.
I was just about to say that. I think I might have said it to you in a week or maybe after the Qarabag game, but I generally think if we don't start, and this is a good point here, CFC Gamers put on the YouTube live chat, Palmer and Esteval will save our season by scoring teams. We have no defense. I agree with the first part of that in terms of Esteval is the only saving grace of the season so far, and hopefully going forward. But I think if we don't start him, and if we don't start using him, whether that's as a right winger or as in the 10, it's only going to take Real Madrid to come knocking, or another team to come knocking. I can't see him turning down a move elsewhere if things are not looking good at Chelsea. He's too good to be sat on a bench. And I hear this conversation all the time around, we should be sort of easing him in, and I get it to an extent, but Wayne Rooney was smashing goals in at 16, and the physicality I would argue was probably a lot worse then as well in the Premier League. Michael Owen, another one. There's been so many young players, and I'm not saying all of them went on to great heights, but there's been players at the age of 18 that have been playing in the Premier League. This isn't like a new thing where he's the first 18-year-old to play in the Premier League. So defenders are scared of him. I can't understand why you wouldn't have someone who, a left back's nightmare is playing against someone like Esteval who can cut in, who can take you out on the outside and then still get the ball into the box and try and create the assist. If you think back to the West Ham goal, I think it was for Fernandez. He's got trickery. He's got the skills. He's got the eye of a good pass. He doesn't mind scoring goals as well. So play him. I can't. And the question I want to ask you, because they put it around here around Esteban and Palmer, is how do you think? Because I think Palmer. I'm not saying he's out of the team. He's not iced out the team. But how do you play both Esteval and Palmer, or is it a case of there's only room for one in the end?
We haven't seen the two of them start together this season, have we?
No, I don't think so.
I think maybe against Bayern Munich, if Esteval started that one, I can't remember if he was on the bench or if he started.
Yeah.
I mean, he only got the nod against West Ham at the London Stadium because of Palmer's injury in the warm-up. So it will be interesting when Palmer's back fit, hopefully for the Barcelona game later this month or after the international break. We might see Maresca kind of pilot maybe Palmer's the 10, Esteval on the right wing, which I did say I think he's looked very impressive when he has played on the right. Against Qarabag, he was taking a lot of defenders on that right-hand side and trying to like drill it into the box or cross it into the box, which he does have in his locker as well. But yeah, when you're a player who's 18, you've just moved to Europe, you've just moved to England, it's your debut season in the Premier League, and we're talking on the 7th of November that he's already scored in the Premier League, he's already scored in the Champions League, he's already scored in the Carabao Cup, and he's also scored a couple goals for Brazil. Like I said, I think we're going to be looking at a player at the World Cup next summer with the whole, the world stage with a lot of people, a lot of other clubs looking at him, thinking this is a player, like you said, a Real Madrid, a Barcelona, PSG, thinking to themselves, this is someone I want to bring into my team. And it's looking more and more like difficult now that we might not get Champions League. We've got to be realistic given how we've kind of started inconsistently this season. And then when you've got a player of his ability, same thing with Palmer, when is it when you start to kind of scratch your head and say to yourself, I'm too good to not be playing Champions League. I'm at the twilight of my career right now, the prime of my career. I should be playing Champions League. I should be impressing, the world on the biggest stage of all, the Champions League. So that's when you do also worry that, you want to retain these top talents or do everything possible to show that they're the right club for them to continue their careers as well.
I agree. I think it's a difficult. I asked you the question, but it's actually quite a difficult question to answer because I personally think unless Cole Palmer comes back and hits the ground running, whenever he returns from his injury, I don't think there's no guarantee that he just walks back into the team. I generally don't, because I think Esteval, for me, based on form as it is at the moment, obviously we can't judge Cole Palmer because he's not playing, but just based on form, it'd be hard to take him out of the team if he does start to get a run of games. I think João Pedro, I would like to see him have a run of games as the 10 behind the striker, as we said before. And then you're talking about that left side where I'd like to see maybe Pedro Neto there as our first choice on the left. Then you've got Garnacho, Gittins, Sweet George. Obviously, I think Cole Palmer's definitely ahead of him, and Garnacho and Gittins, I suppose, to an extent. But I don't know, how do you fit all of those players into that front three, behind the striker? I just don't think it's possible to play both Cole Palmer and Esteval in the same team at the same time. I don't think it's possible.
Yeah, it's a good headache for Maresca to have, and I think Palmer will start no matter what. I think under this new ownership, he's almost like the poster boy of our club.
Where does he start though? And so above Esteval, I'd assume.
Well, let's be honest, Esteval's not even starting in the Premier League at the moment.
But he has to. I think he has to.
I agree. He has to, but I think Maresca almost sees him more maybe as a right winger, or I'm not sure, but he's not getting the starts he deserves in the Premier League. He then starts against Tottenham, he then starts against Sunderland. So maybe that paves the way slightly for Palmer to come back as well. But until we see maybe Maresca really choose Esteval as one of his guaranteed starters every week, maybe the possibility of them starting matches together when Palmer's back at end of November might not be a guaranteed as well.
This is a good point. It's a good point. Got a comment here from the Blue Lounge as well. It says, big up my guy. We do have a number of issues. The biggest one I feel is a lack of experience, especially in regards to Maresca. He is falling short too often. I would say that's probably a very good assessment of how majority of Chelsea fans are feeling at the moment. It's difficult because I think Maresca's under a lot of pressure. I think you've just said something as well that's quite crucial. Um, our season is probably, I would say, in jeopardy. It's certainly crumbling. I think, I think it's at a point where we don't look confident to get a top four finish at the moment, especially if we don't beat Wolves, which we'll talk about the preview of that shortly. But if we don't beat them, we're currently, I think, 12th, I think, in the Champions League table. So we're outside of the top eight. We've got, I think I said Napoli, Barcelona, I think Atalanta and Paphos are the games we've got left to play. I remember texting you about Cardiff in the Carabao Cup and saying it's actually not the ideal fixture for me. I just don't like playing the team that you should beat. I just don't like that. It's a way. I think I was going to say Ninian Park. It's not Ninian Park anymore. I can't remember what their stadium's called anymore. And then we've got the
I
FA
think I
Cup.
sent it to you as well. Did you see who their striker is?
Yeah, Callum Robinson.
Callum Robinson, formerly of West Brom. To refresh Chelsea fans' minds, I think it was the 2020 season, 2021 season.
Yeah, it was.
Scored, I think, probably 3 or 4 goals in both of those fixtures.
Wasn't it Thiago's debut? Thiago Silva's debut as well.
Thiago Silva's debut, and then they beat us, I think, 5-2 at Stamford Bridge right after Easter.
Yeah,
it was a bit of a blip in form, but I just remember his face just haunting Chelsea fans for quite a while. So it'll be typical if he's on a score sheet in that one.
Yeah, I'm not looking forward to that game. Then obviously we've got the FA Cup as well to come, but I just feel is our season. I mean, I did say on the start of the YouTube that or on the thumbnail that our season could potentially be over, and by that I don't mean let's not play for anything, but there was a lot of expectation at the very start of the season. I was one of them that was saying we should be tighter challenging, that we should be going quite far into the Champions League. I thought Ajax and Qarabag, Paphos, even I think I said even Bayern Munich at the time we should beat them, but obviously they've started their season very well. Assess our season after 9 games in the Premier League and I think 3 or 4 games in the Champions League now. Is it at a point where if we lose against Wolves, if we don't beat Paphos and Barcelona, that the season is ultimately down to then the Carabao Cup?
I think in the Champions League we are to be where it's expected. I mean, had you told me we'd comfortably be Benfica and Ajax at home and secure 6 points in those fixtures, I've been really happy. And there'll always be games like Qarabag. It's happened before. I think we drew with Genk when we won the Champions League in 2012.
Dinamo Zagreb as well.
Yeah, Dinamo Zagreb, we lost that one under Tuchel, which was his final game. Even Barcelona was 2 nights ago. They drew with Club Brugge as well. Inter Milan just got past Kairat. These fixtures they do happen. They do, but I think what I want to kind of see as a make or break in our season is the next 2 months, November, December. Because you remember back to last year, we were called title challengers. We were up there with Liverpool, and then come December, our season kind of derailed, and then in January, February, we were talking about, are we even going to get top 4 or top 6? So we've got relatively good group comfortable fixtures coming up. We've got Wolves, then I think Burnley after the international break. Then it gets tricky. We get Barcelona and Arsenal back to back. And then we know how December is. Even if the fixtures are easy, they come thick and fast.
Yeah.
And this is why I do worry that maybe our rotated team isn't quite ready yet or up to scratch to win these type of games. So we're going to need to make sure that there's a sense of unity. And I don't want to say our season's over, but come December, if that kind of gap between us and the top of the Premier League and City and Arsenal is a lot bigger than it currently is, which I think is right now, it's like, what is it, 7, 8 points, I think. Then that's when I'm going to say, like, yeah, it's over. And I just kind of fed up of always talking about top 4. It'd be nice to have that season where it gets to April and we're still up there challenging. That's what I like in a way. But yeah, I would say it's far from over. We're still competing domestically. We're still looking in a comfortable position to get at least a playoff spot in the Champions League. And you look at our next fixtures, maybe bar the Barcelona one, even Napoli in the Champions League. They haven't looked up to scratch. They've looked poor. Conte, he's a league manager. He's not a knockout manager. I think it'll be an interesting, November, December, even in January, given those Champions League fixtures go into January this season as well.
I'm not looking forward to the next 2 months, I'll be honest. I think Wolves is always a weird game. I think obviously it helps that it's at Stamford Bridge, but again, you said it, the opening part of the podcast around the traveling time, getting back at 6 a.m. How much have we trained this week since then? It's going to be a difficult game. After the international break, we played Burnley 12:30. We never liked 12:30 kickoffs as Chelsea fans. Straight after the international break, then we played Barcelona, followed by Arsenal. Both of those games at Stamford Bridge. A tricky trip to Leeds, 8:15. After that, on the 3rd of December, Bournemouth follows that game 3 days later. Then we have Atalanta away, going into that busy Christmas period. Everton at home, Cardiff away in the cup, Newcastle 12:30, 20th of December, and then on the day after Boxing Day, as there's only one game this year on Boxing Day, we play Aston Villa at Stamford Bridge. So there's tricky games in there, and I just think for where my expectations were at the start of the season, when I was saying that we should be. I remember choosing my words very, very carefully. I said we shouldn't be winning the league, but we should at least be pushing for a title run, title challenge, being up there with the likes of Liverpool, Manchester United, Manchester City, Arsenal. And we've already fell off. We're only 10 games into the season. We feel like we fell off that sort of conversation. So I do think, I do think it's a tricky one, because I think unless we do well in the league, I think I wouldn't trust this team in the knockout stages of the Champions League, is what I'm saying. I wouldn't trust the strikers. I wouldn't trust Liam Delap. I wouldn't essentially trust, I just wouldn't trust them. I just wouldn't trust his team. Knockout football is completely different, because of course you can always beat whoever's in front of you. We did that in the Club World Cup, but I just think I look at this squad now and it's just not. There's so much still missing in it for me. It's it's just difficult. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I feel like we'd be lucky to get some domestic silverware this season, and that should be the goal. Domestic silverware, top 4 now, and a good Champions League run. I just get annoyed because our expectations changed 2 months into the season.
Yeah.
But I'm not ruling anything out. It's still very early in the season, and I was talking to a friend who I told them, like, yeah, Arsenal are going to run. Hate to say it, but Arsenal are going to run away with it this season. And he said, "What do you mean? It's only 2 months in. Anything can happen after that." Sometimes you just get like a bit of you can see how teams play, their style, how like unified they look, and I feel like it's almost day and light now between City, Arsenal, and then us and the likes of maybe a Tottenham or United as well.
Yeah, we've certainly fell down the pecking order, I think, as well. Let's just pick up some, before we do the Wolves predictions, let's just pick up some of the stuff that was mentioned in the press conference this morning. You mentioned obviously already about Romeo Lavia. Pedro Neto, I don't think he's fully fit, because there was mention of him in the press conference around. He was obviously included in a session for yesterday. Maresca almost downplayed it, but it sounds like he's not fully fit by the sounds of it. It's almost like he's a bit of a touch and go for the Wolves game tomorrow. He was obviously quizzed around the rotation, which we spoke about earlier already. Going into this Wolves game, it feels like it's a game where you're probably playing Wolves at the best time. They're still scoping out who's going to be their next manager. They're rock bottom of the Premier League. We played them recently at Molineux in the Qarabag Cup as well, and played convincingly well. Is this a time where you just have to strike while the iron is hot, and almost, we can smell blood already before the game's kicked off?
Yeah, I mean, they're bottom of the league, 2 points. I think the only points came against Tottenham and against Brighton, both draws. That being said, I think we were complacent. We were maybe a bit too cocky ahead of Qarabag. I think every game now we need to go into the same approach that, there are opponents, we need to win. We need to play our best 11. Pedro Neto, I think, might be a doubt by the looks of it. I think his issue that kept him out of the trip to Baku is still maybe potentially lingering. Caicedo is frustrating because we probably were hoping not to play him for 90 minutes or 86 minutes against Qarabag, and now he's going to be forced to play another 90 minutes on Saturday. Interesting what he had to say about Estevao. He said he's ready to start. If he starts, another one is on the bench who wants to start. We need to try to do our best for Estevao. We are helping him adapt. Last week, he was complaining about being probably too cold. We are still in October. Imagine December and January. So it looks like Maresca is already kind of coming up with some excuses why maybe he's not going to pick him on Saturday, which is a bit frustrating to hear. But yeah, we need to play our best 11 against Wolves. There shouldn't be any excuses. I hate kind of almost playing these teams right after they sack their manager, because sometimes you do have a bit of a new manager bounce, even if it's just an interim coach that's looking after them for a couple of weeks. But there shouldn't be any excuse. I mean, we've all watched Match of the Day. We've all watched YouTube highlights. Wolves have been atrocious this season. Really, really poor. Plus, we're at Stamford Bridge, bar the Sunderland and the Brighton game. I think in 2025, we've got a really good home record. So we should be, if we kind of, like if I say every time, if we finish the game with 11 men, we should be winning this one.
I try not to mention discipline on this episode, but
we've done well. Yeah,
it's a good point. It's a good point to raise, because I think, you know, obviously discipline has been a big thing. Now you've mentioned it, I mean, it's the sort of game where I can see us picking up a silly red card or 2 yellows. Very physical Wolves. Wolves can be quite physical. We have to match that, but I think you have to match it in a way that you don't cross that line and you're suddenly playing with 10 men for a large portion of the game.
Absolutely. And it's the same game where Delap, when he got sent off a few weeks ago, and knowing him, he's probably still got a bit of bad blood with whoever he elbowed in the face. But last season we won this fixture 3-1, I think, towards the end of January.
Yeah.
I think it was Tosin, Madueke and Cucurella getting the goals. The reverse fixture last season, we won it 6-2 at Molineux, where I think Jackson and Palmer and Neto and Joao Felix all got on the score sheet.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think there shouldn't be any excuses. So we need to win quite comfortably. And the last thing you want to do is drop more points and head into that international break, looking more who's behind you rather than in front of you.
Yeah. I think it's always tricky, because you want to obviously sign off this segment of the season with a win, go to the international break, and then come back. Hopefully that Burnley game isn't, I mean, it's probably a good game to come back into after the international period as well. But I agree with you. I think this is a game where, and I remember when you sent me that Wolves had sacked their manager, I remember saying, but we should still win.
Yeah.
And I still think we should. I still think, regardless of who's taking charge of that team, we should have enough at Stamford Bridge with the record that we've got at home to still win that game. And I'll be surprised. I'll be devastated actually if we don't win that game. It'll just ruin my Sunday. By the time I wake up Sunday morning. In terms of predicted lineup, and as we've just done a segment on no consistency with Maresca, this is probably going to be one of the hardest lineups to pick off the back of traveling, 4 hours or 6 hours to get to Baku, 6 hours back, 4-hour time difference. I feel like this might be a game where Maresca again overthinks it and thinks some of these players have traveled. I need to rest them for this game before they travel away to their international teams. What if you had to, what was the lineup you would potentially go with?
It's got to be our strongest 11. It's got to. There's no game afterwards. It's international break. So I would go with Sanchez, Cucurella, Fofana, Chalobah, Reece James. Although I think Gusto will start, given he didn't play against Qarabag. Then your midfield has to be Caicedo and Enzo.
Yeah.
Then you've got to go with João Pedro as the 10. After what he said today, I don't think Estevao is starting. This is my predicted lineup, not my preferred lineup.
Yeah.
But I think it will be Garnacho and Pedro Neto, potentially, with Liam Delap leading a line, which means Gittins, Tyreek George, and Estevao are benched. Although if Neto's not fit, I think maybe that paves the way for a Gittins, or maybe even an Estevao. But you've got to play a striker, whether it's Gui or Liam Delap. If one of them, the two's got to start. I don't want any of this João Pedro, number 9. Tyreek George, number 9. But one thing I will say is, if we play like we did against Tottenham and we take our chances this time, we could win this like 5 or 6-0. It's easier said than done, because taking our chances, we couldn't do that against Tottenham. The last 5 minutes of that game, we could have scored 3 in just the last 5 minutes with João Pedro and Gittins missing that sitter.
Yeah.
But I'm going to ask you for your lineup afterwards. But I thought one thing we did really well against Tottenham was, I'm not sure you noticed this, is they were planning to do some long throws with Danso.
Yeah.
We had João Pedro, Garnacho, and I think maybe Gittins all just waiting on the halfway line or just outside the box. And I read that apparently we purposely did that not to overcrowd the box and not to overcrowd Sanchez, to allow him to kind of
come
come
out.
and claim the ball quite
Yeah.
comfortably, which he did perfectly.
Mm.
Whether that was what was discussed in training, but whatever it was, it worked because Tottenham really struggled with their long throws despite Danso launching it into the box numerous times.
Well, you always find when you overcrowd the box, it's more difficult. Sometimes it's your own player that actually
Yeah,
stops you from getting to the ball. So I think I didn't actually realize that, but I think it makes sense because then if you do get Sanchez gets the ball, the counter attack is on. You've got
yeah,
three of the
there
best,
you go.
three of the best, I'd say in our team at the moment that can counter press and try and score a goal. So that makes sense. I think it's a dangerous game to play because you've got to rely obviously on your goalkeeper, your defenders to get that ball out and release the ball as quickly as possible. But I wouldn't be surprised to see that again if we did that against Spurs. I don't know who does the long throws for Wolves. I'm sure they've got someone there who does that. But my lineup wouldn't be too different to yours. I think the goalkeeper, the back line, I'd go with Reece James right back. Two midfield, I think has to stay the same. João Pedro has to stay as the 10. I would start Esteval. I know again this is a sort of hybrid of my preferred predicted or what I think will happen. I'm gonna go with Gittins. And he said Nettins, Gittins, Gittins on the left because I think Pedro. There's too many Netos and Joaos. Gittins, I think, will play ahead of Pedro Neto because I think Neto isn't fully fit, and I think off the back of what we just said about injuries and all the rest of it, if there's players that aren't fully fit, let's just keep them out of the team. I think Gittins, as we got to see against in the Carabao Cup, is very comfortable playing against Wolves. Looks very well. I think did he get 2 assists that night? I can't remember. He definitely got the 1 at least. Liam Delap, if he starts, he has to do more than just run and bully defenders. I want to see him take shots. One of the things I don't think we do, and you sort of said this with the Spurs game, was we don't test the goalkeeper enough in terms of just actually when you got a chance, shoot the ball. Just shoot. Real Madrid did it the other night against Liverpool. They're just passing it around and trying to look for the little cut through to just shoot. Just test the goalkeeper. Just test him. It's a cold night. It's 8 o'clock at night. It's going to be a bit chilly in London. Just test him.
This is no disrespect to Wolves, but their keepers have been really out of form as well.
Oh, there we go.
Is it Sam Johnson and
And
Jose Sarr?
Sarr.
And the City did it. Was it 2 nights ago against Dortmund, and they just smashed him in with Phil Foden. So yeah, shoot.
Just test the goalkeeper, and whichever Wolves team they bring out, Huvier, and they've got Hoang's up front with Strand Larson. We should have enough to cope with them. Esteval for me has to start this game. I'll be very, very disappointed if he doesn't. If Cold comes into the, God help him if he ever ends up in a club in Russia or somewhere like that in his later life. He has to there can't be any excuses anymore. He has to start games.
Imagine, I'm just picturing Esteval playing that Kazakhstani team.
Yeah, exactly.
League last season.
He wouldn't have got off the bus. He would have been on the airplane still.
Yeah, I remember they were literally wearing 3 layers, and they gave them authorization to wear snoods that day.
I think even the ref had a snood on. It was like, I mean, I can't have that as an excuse. This has to be the game where we see the best, like you said, the strongest possible squad that we've got has to come out of this game at Wolves. And you would think off the back of the Qarabag performance, you'd want to put in a really convincing, and sorry to say this, Wolves fans, if anyone listens to this, but you want to put in a very convincing, smash them 4-5, maybe even 6-0 performance, and just get that Qarabag game out your system, go away to international break and come back and just kick on for the season. But it's easier said than done.
Yeah. What I want to avoid, though, is exactly what happened last time, having that momentum, that confidence after the Liverpool win, coming back after the international break, and then dropping points to Sunderland, which could be a reality. We might smash Wolves, like you said, 5-6-0, come back 12:30 kickoff against Burnley in 2 weeks' time, and potentially drop points at Turf Moor. We have to be consistent now. We can't just win a couple games and lose or draw games. We need to be winning games on the trot, 3 or 4 games in a row, to be back in contention of challenging or back in contention of top 4 as well.
It's worrying times. Worrying times for Chelsea. Before we wrap up, predicted scoreline. What are you going with? What's your official predicted scoreline? What are you going to be doing on the Chelsea app in a couple of hours' time?
I don't think I've gotten a single one right this season. I think maybe the first goal scorer I myself, scoreline has just been impossible. Like I said, if we play like we did against Spurs and Estevao or Pedro de Lapa are clinical and we don't miss our chances, I think we've got goals in our locker at Stamford Bridge in front of the fans. I think maybe even like at the Molineux, we could be 2-3-0 up after like 20, 30 minutes.
Yeah.
But I think maybe we might let Wolves back into the game somehow. But I think we'll win this one 3-1.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go for 3-0. I'm going to go 3-0. I want to see a clean sheet. I want to see a top performance, solid performance. But as you said, and as you know, mistakes are always not too far away from our Chelsea defense. But I am going to go 3-0. Try and stay positive for the weekend ahead. Before Chelsea let me down at 8 p.m. tomorrow evening. But Theo, as always, thank you very much for joining. As always, it's a pleasure recording back on the podcast. We didn't even talk about Cape Town. We'll have to do that on a separate. Maybe international break is coming up, so I'm sure we'll have things to fill the void of Chelsea content on there as well. But if you're here as part of the live stream, thank you very much. We appreciate it. If you got involved in the conversation, if you're on Spotify, as always, make sure you hit that notification bell on there as well so you don't miss any episodes. We'll be back after the Wolves game. So again, let's hope it's not me just screaming at the camera as I have done before on numerous live streams before. Enjoy your weekend. We'll be back soon. Thank you very much for watching.